Well, good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome to tonight's stream. We are back in the lab, your weekly source for the rundown of all things Indoor Football League. Whether you are here for the recap of the week that was, a preview of the playoff week that is to come, or are here to find out about some more of the great goings on of this amazing league, you are in the right place. It is just a few minutes past 9:30 here, and on this final day of July, it is time once again for Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, taking some time out of your busy evening to come talk shop about the greatest indoor league that there is. For those of you who are new to the league this year or new to this channel in particular, I want to welcome you aboard. Glad you're able to tune in just in time for this playoff push. My name is Alex Schuberth. I am a huge fan of the indoor and arena football game. That is a passion that I have channeled into my current role as lead IFL contributor for Sports Coast to Coast, which is a Pacific Northwest-based sports forum site which specializes specifically in the coverage of the IFL and its 14 member teams. Each week, our dedicated staff will bring you everything that you would want to know: up to date team rosters, game previews, game recaps, breaking news as it develops, as well as historical results for the league dating back as early as the 2016 season. So, if you call yourself a fan of the Indoor Football League, Sports Coast to Coast is your go-to resource for all things related to the IFL. There's a bunch of other content out there as well, a lot with a Pacific Northwest-based flavor. So if you happen to be in like that Washington, Montana, Idaho region, or Oregon, a little bit of something there for you as well. So I have linked the site below in the description. There you will also find the written version of my Wager Wednesday piece, which I went out and published late yesterday evening. So definitely check those out at your leisure if you would like. But we are here. We fought through 20 weeks. We fought through basically 4.5 months of the indoor war. And lo and behold, we've whittled down our field of contenders from 14 to 8. And we will whittle that down further in half after this weekend's action. So, playoffs, here we come. All right, to give a lowdown of what is to come on tonight's show, we'll start things off by recapping each of the 6 games that we were treated to last week. We had a few from this field that were more filler games than anything else, to put it politely. But we did have another few with some significant playoff implications, including a do-or-die showdown in Fishers that went right down to the wire. So we will recap each of those 6 games in their full lore, as we will send the 8 teams that qualified on their way to the playoffs, and for the 6 teams that didn't qualify, we'll send them off on at least as high of a note as we can. With the regular season in the books, we'll have a chance to check in on some of the significant stats that developed throughout the season. We'll take a look at our bets specifically, as well as team and league-wide trends. So basically everything that we would want to know there as we try to forecast, of these streaks that we see, which of them have the best chance of carrying over into the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, the first round is here. After we do all of our reflection and our recap, we've got 4 games to dive into, each of them with amazing allure. We have a standalone game on Saturday, and we'll have 3 games on Sunday this week. We will go over each and every one of them, discuss our 3-leg parlay of the week, and we will do all of this with 2 very special guests, which I will bring in once we are ready to dive into the big board. All right, week 20 came and passed. We had 6 games, 2 apiece on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll start our recap here with the San Antonio Gunslingers and the Iowa Barnstormers. Now, this game involved 2 teams out of the playoff picture, looking to close out on a win to serve as a little bit of a building block, hopefully, for some momentum heading into the 2027 season. Iowa came in and played the first half of this game. They let it all out on the field. They have struggled to the tune of just one win all season leading up to this one. And believe it or not, this game was the only one of the season where they had the lead after 30 minutes, up by a score of, I believe it was 26-20 at halftime. San Antonio, they took the lead in the third quarter with a touchdown plus extra point. And then from that point onwards, it was struggles abound for both offenses. Iowa's run game eventually got figured out. San Antonio did a really nice job of stopping him at the line. They ended up forcing 3 consecutive missed field goal attempts to give possession back to San Antonio. But the thing is, the Gunslingers committed turnovers on each of those 3 subsequent drives. So as the fourth quarter clock was grinding down and down and down, the Barnstormers still maintained a reasonable chance to try to win the game. Unfortunately for them, the offense that had been stuck pretty much in park since the beginning of the second half stayed that way. They didn't end up scoring any points in the final 30 minutes either. San Antonio getting a touchdown with about 8 seconds to go to kind of add a little bit of insurance just in case. But in any event, they get out of Iowa with a 33-26 win. So San Antonio and Iowa, ironically enough, both finished 2026 with the same record that they had in 2025. In San Antonio's case, 5-11, and Iowa's case, a second straight 1-win season at 1-15. Last game of Friday, the second game rather, the Tucson Sugar Skulls heading to San Diego to face the Strike Force. This is a preview of a playoff matchup that we are going to see later this weekend. However, with both teams knowing their positions leading up to this game, with the outcome of Friday's outing not having any impact on that reality, this game was about load management and getting the reserves some worthwhile playing time. So at quarterback for Tucson, we had Juwan Mathis, and San Diego trotted out Kyle Kelly. The first portion of this game dominated by the Sugar Skulls, who used their sneaky good defense, came up with a couple interceptions early, and that helped boost them to a 17-point lead. But after San Diego ended the second half with a touchdown and a momentum-shifting fumble recovery, they pretty much took the reins and said, all right, that's enough of that. Time to take charge, which they did. After trailing by 17, San Diego rips a 27-point unanswered run to give them a 10-point lead, at which point they were able to keep Tucson primarily at bay. They were able to match Tucson's final 2 touchdowns with 2 touchdowns of their own. They nearly got another touchdown late in the game to sort of present a front door situation, but cooler heads prevail. The Strike Force run out the rest of the clock, and they get out with their 13th win of the season. Final in this one was 40-36 in favor of the hosts, as both teams get out mostly scot-free in terms of injuries and preparation for next week's game, which actually matters far more. Our pair of Saturday games led off with the Tulsa Oilers on 8 straight wins, trying to run that streak up to 9 in a road date against the Quad City Steamwheelers, this being the second of a home-and-home series that started out in Tulsa the week before. And whereas the Oiler offense had its struggles in the midsection of that game where they had to rely on the game-winning field goal to take that one, there were no such slowdowns in this one. TJ Edwards combining for 8 total touchdowns, 6 through the air, 2 on the ground, to continue or cap off his season with an MVP-esque performance. One that also had a residual effect of completing the receiving triple crown for Jerminic Smith, the only receiver in the IFL this season to eclipse the 1,000-yard milestone. With all of that firepower on the Tulsa side, Quad City, even though they played admirably on offense here, they didn't really have much of a shot unless they were able to stop Tulsa in any capacity, which in this game just didn't happen for them. So a disappointing season for Quad City concludes, while the Oilers kept their hopes of hosting playoff football alive with a 66-42 victory. So Tulsa 11-5, their best regular season finish in their 4-year history, whereas the Quad City Steamwheelers end at 5-11, amongst their worst records since joining the IFL, and the first time since 2019 where they actually failed to qualify for the playoffs. The nightcap of Saturday's action involved the Northern Arizona Wranglers and the Vegas Nighthawks, two teams that came into this one with much different goals. In the case of the Nighthawks, it was keep the momentum going while preserving the health of their primary starters. And in the case of the Wranglers, who were battling some injury woes themselves, it was about trying to get some positive plays together and trying to identify pieces to keep around for the 2027 season. This game featured a relatively slow start for both offenses. We saw some fumbles and interceptions combined between the two of them. However, the turnover bug hit Northern Arizona the hardest, with 3 interceptions from backup Debo Bryant, along with a pair of fumbles from some of the other Northern Arizona skill position players. That really handicapped the Wranglers' ability to do much in terms of offense on this game. Meanwhile, for the Nighthawks, they pivoted over to Quincy Crittenden, who started his 3rd game of the season. And just like his prior couple starts, kept the offense going at a pretty solid clip. Quentin Randolph was involved early in the first quarter. Josh Tomas coming back from injured reserve. Figures to be a super boost for the Nighthawks in their title defense campaign. But yeah, this game was pretty much all Nighthawks wire to wire. Not much doubt in this one in the late stages. The Nighthawks wrap up their season with a 54-20 win. They will be the number 2 seed in the Western Conference with a 12-4 record, whereas Northern Arizona falls to a finishing record of 3-13, just a 1-game improvement from their 2-14 2025 slate. Moving on to Sunday's action, our prime matchup of the week. This was the play-in. The Orlando Pirates taking on the Fisher's Freight just outside of Indianapolis in a game where you had to figure both offenses were pretty much going to try to outslug the other to try to stake claim on that 4th and final playoff spot in the East. And folks, that is precisely what we got. Paxton DeLaurent and Puka Williams and Thomas Owens on the Orlando side combated all night long with Felix Harper, Dominic Roberto, and Isaiah Coulter on the Freight side. Ironically enough, all 3 of those players on the Freight were at one point Pirates in the 2025 season. But yeah, this was a game where you had some variations from the touchdown game script. In the case of the Pirates, they had a couple of defensive stands, which proved big. One late in the second quarter and another midway through the third quarter. But the Freight came back with a stolen possession off an onside kick recovery in the fourth quarter that helped them turn what was a 13-point deficit into a 1-point lead. Through a thrilling endgame sequence with 20 seconds to go, Paxton DeLaurent rushes in for a short touchdown run, giving the Pirates a 4-point lead, which situated a do-or-die scenario for the Freight. Final snap of the game, they've got to come up with a 17-yard touchdown play. Felix Harper drops back in the pocket, well protected, goes to the end zone for Isaiah Coulter, who just can't haul it in. I mean, the frame-by-frame makes that play look so exceedingly close. But such is the merciless life in the indoor football league, where that play serves as the difference between extending your season, keeping your championship hopes alive, and seeing those hopes just destroyed on an instant. The thrill of the game, man. One in which the Orlando Pirates clinched the number 4 seed in the East, getting this 67-63 victory over Fishers, which surprisingly enough keeps the Pirates a perfect 4-0 against Fishers in their franchise history. So a little bit of a dragon to slay for the Freight as they make preparations for 2027. Our week wrapped up with the Green Bay Blizzard taking on the Jacksonville Sharks, a game that did have significance for Jacksonville. Because of Tulsa's win the night prior, the Sharks needed a win in this game in order to stay at home for this upcoming game next week. And Sammy Edwards and that Shark offense, they answered the bell in about the best way you could have possibly imagined. They got a big day out of Marquell Wade and Jaden Stoshak, who had 4 and 3 touchdowns respectively, as they just ran circles around a Blizzard secondary that maybe had eyes set on what's to come this week. A win or a loss didn't really improve or handicap Green Bay any further. They had already clinched the number 1 seed, I believe, a couple weeks ago. But in a game that the Sharks had to win, they kept the foot on the gas all night long, scoring touchdowns on all of their drives except for their final one where they ran out the clock. And that was enough to withstand a Green Bay attack that actually had trotted out the likes of Liam Thompson and Kyrie Robinson for a few quarters. A bit of a surprise move in the eyes of the public, but in any event, the Sharks move on as the number 2 seed in the East. They take down the East number 1 seed, the Green Bay Blizzard, 60-47, the final of that one. So all of that said, we wrap up our week 20 with a 4-2 record, which actually gets us to a winning regular season for the 4th consecutive year since this series founding. So recalling that we were 6 games below with 3 weeks left on the docket, an outstanding result through and through. The profit loss does look a little bit shaky, but that's what happens when you rely on a few favorites on the money line as part of those selections. You sacrifice a little bit, you drag that over long term, and that's what you get. But of our 55 losses, 30 of them came by 8 points or fewer, showing how truly 50-50 the majority of these picks are. Case in point, take even 5 of those bad breaks, flip them the other way. We match last year's regular season record of 62-50. So we talk all the time about that razor thin margin. We're seeing those direct applications here. The majority of our successful bets were on favorites, so we were able to read pretty well into what was a fairly chalky season in the IFL as far as favorites taking care of business. We'll get to particulars on those numbers in a little bit once we dive into the population of season results. Our biggest thorn in our side this year, rather surprisingly, our point total betting, which was 32-18 last season, but took a complete 180 turn this season. Though we did finish strong with 5 of our last 7 over-under picks turning up as winners. As far as our parlay attempts go, we nailed one. We finally got the first 2 legs, and then the third finally cooperated for us this week. So we had gone Tucson, San Diego under 87.5 in a game featuring mostly backups. That game did get a little bit hairy near the 4th quarter with some quick scoring by both sides, but still manages to stay, I think, 11 points or 12 points below the total. Our Tulsa moneyline pick at minus 205 proved strong as the Oilers won by 24. And then Orlando and Fishers both cracked 60 and easily blew that over 97.5 out of the water. So we turned those 3 picks into a plus 442 winner, serving as our 4th parlay win of the season, which winds up meeting the preseason goal that we came into the season with all the way back in March. So moral of the story here, parlay betting is super, super volatile. I would not recommend it, but we do see the insane promise and the allure that it brings if you hit on 4 or even 5 of these. The return on investment just goes crazy. As long as you're willing to stomach a ton of losses, it's a strategy. I will say that much. Our year-to-date net gain loss method by week, illustrated here. As you can see, we bottomed out in week 17, but we've really rebounded nicely here to take that net loss and basically shave it in half. If we can accomplish that same feat throughout this 3-week postseason run, get ourselves to maybe even that 4 or 3 unit of net loss, I'd consider that a high quality, strong finish. So that is what we're going to be going for to keep our postseason form pretty sterling here. All right, here's our yearly results by bet. All 112 regular season games are in the books. And the result set that we have here, a pretty darn good sight for the public bettors, by which I mean public loves to bet on favorites on the spread as well as overs. Because let's be honest, life is too short to bet the under. But if you had stuck with one of those bet types for basically any prediction that you place this season, your record on favorites on the spread would be 16.52. Your record on overs would be 61-51, which would have resulted this year in a net gain of somewhere between 2 and 4 units on the season. So very, very good season for those bet types. It is by far the best result by favorites on the spread and over under so far. But really the primary story of this season was the home team and their dominance, winning 62% of the time outright, along with covering 64% of the time, which for a bet type that's supposed to be as close to 50-50 as possible, those are statistically significant, at least mostly the home team against the spread. League average game for point scoring this season clocked in at around 87.1 points per game. So we had settled in on that 86.5, 87.5 threshold to kind of take a look at how the over-under performs based on whether we jump from that 86.5 up to that 87.5. So what we ended up seeing there was a 10% jump in the efficiency of the under once we reached that 87.5 number. So to close things out from this reflection piece, again, favorites were killer this season. Lots of chalk. Even with the underdog winning both of Sunday's games, favorites still finished with an outright record of 82-30 for a conversion rate of 73%, which, considering the 3-year sample before that had a winning percentage for favorites at around 66-67%, this 6% jump is pretty noteworthy. All right, looking at our team by team trends, seeing where teams outperformed versus maybe underperformed, depending on your vantage point. It should come as no surprise that the top 6 teams in terms of covering the spread are participating in the postseason, with the Orlando Pirates leading the way at 11-5, 5 other teams tied at 10-6. In fact, the only team below 500 against the spread in the playoff field, the Jacksonville Sharks. Is that something that we could file away in the back of our minds as we get set to cover their playoff game coming up? The over-under stat right there in the middle column. Also filled with a bunch of playoff teams as far as the over goes. The Pirates and the Oilers tying as the best over hitting teams with 12-4 records apiece. San Diego and Green Bay not too far behind at 10-6. You also have Jacksonville at 9-7 as well, along with the Fishers Freight. The only 2 competing playoff teams that cashed more unders this season, the Arizona Rattlers and the Tucson Sugar Skulls, the latter of whom tied for the best under hitting team in the league with the Quad City Steamwheelers and the Iowa Barnstormers. As far as moneyline profitability, Tucson took the cake with their series of upsets this year, including hits at plus 1,600 and plus 600. San Diego not too far behind, covering 54% of an ROI, also featuring a series of moneyline wins where they were the underdogs. So Fascinating stats all around. Now we'll take a look at some of the hot trends of the competing playoff teams. So the teams that have been eliminated are highlighted in white to indicate that their seasons are effectively over, and thus we can't capitalize on whichever streaks that they have. But the big one heading in, Tulsa's 9-game over streak, which is the longest over-under streak of any kind in the IFL's 4-year betting era. Is that something that continues against the Sharks? Or does the notion of playoff football have something to say about that? We could also look at Orlando's 3-game over streak, Vegas's 3-game under streak, as well as Arizona's 4-game cover streak. So the Rattlers playing some of their best ball at exactly the right time. They had last week as a quasi-bye heading into this game. Does that effectively serve as an advantage? Or does the classic battle of rust versus rust favor the latter? Here are our results by team. Separating things out by bet type, we were actually able to log wins on every team's 3 different bet types, with the exception of the Chupacabras, which we will have to wait until 2027 to cash one of their over-unders. With Fisher's loss against the Orlando Pirates, we had picked them on the money line to win. They unfortunately fall to a 6-10 record in terms of our selections. So we still carry a double-digit number of teams here to our preseason goal of 7 wins, all of which, except for the Strike Force, actually, going past that 7-win requirement. So last year, we ended up getting 13 of these teams through to that 7-win mark. So took a little bit of a step back this season, but still not bad at all. Contributed to a good late season charge at the end. Again, showing the power that this tool has had with our with how we've refined our selections. And now that the regular season is in the books, we can kind of pause for a minute and take a little bit of stock at how Wager Wednesday has done throughout its 4-year lifetime. Overall, 253 wins, 215 losses, and 2 pushes, looking at an overall net gain of 10 units. Our ROI for the entirety of the slate goes down by a little bit. We had started the season off at around 5.5%. But given that we took a little bit of a bite in the regular season, we're going to have to rely on another solid postseason run here to further bridge that gap and try to finish in a better state that we're entering the postseason in. All right, time for disclaimers. This show has a very, very prominent predictive undertone to it. But I should underscore that this series is purely for entertainment, fun, and love of the game of indoor football, with a lot of a mathematical and analytical insight. My primary goal here is to grow the game in that fashion, discuss all of the highlights that you need to know leading up to these games, and any predictions that you see here that I talk about are my own. If you do want to try your luck with some of these picks, you must be 21 years of age or older to play in most jurisdictions. And if you want to tail or fade my picks, I'd recommend practicing safe gaming habits. That includes setting a budget in terms of both your time and your money. Risk only what you can afford to lose. And if you feel like you or a loved one is teetering upon or maybe having issues with problem gaming, there are a lot of resources, either online or issued by your state, that provide assistance in that matter. The 2 that I've highlighted throughout this season, haveagameplan.org and responsibleplay.org, both of which are great resources that help debunk gambling myths and answer a series of questions and refers you to additional resources where needed. So if you feel like things are maybe spiraling out of control on that front, know that you are not alone and that help is out there. All right, we have our big board set. The bracket is there. It is time to dive into our picks. But before we hop right in, I am going to introduce our 2 very special guests. Two of the very best content creators that indoor football has to offer. I've got the privilege of calling them my arena ball besties. Ladies and gentlemen, in the middle, we've got Trey from Off the Wall and Cody from In the Alley. Gentlemen, thanks for hopping on. How you guys been? How are you feeling leading up to this weekend's action? Let me
I think we're muted
as well. Yep, fixed
All right,
now.
can you hear me now? We're good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're living the dream over here. The indoor war's coming to an end, but we got a couple of bangers that open up the playoffs here, and excited to be here to talk about it.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be one hell of a playoff run for any of these 8 teams. I think that for the first time in a while, you can probably make a case for all 8 teams that can make a run and lift the trophy. You couldn't probably do that for the last couple of years, but you can make a case for any of these teams.
And even at that, judging by what we've seen over the past few postseasons, really nothing is set in stone at this point. Like single elimination is a nasty, nasty thing, or it could be a blessing in disguise. So we have ourselves some untold action in front of us. Really hard to predict how it's going to go down, but 3 of us are going to try to do the best that we can. So let's bring back our board here. And this is going to have a little bit of a different feel to it. So I'm not sure if I've told you guys the story about my run-ins with the YouTube algorithm. But I've had a couple videos taken down, I'm assuming, because I had the screen showing of DraftKings itself. So we're not going to do that. We're going to improvise. We're going to adapt. And we've got screenshots here, and we get to admire the Tecmo-themed team helmets that much more. So
love it.
Good beats. Let's talk about Tulsa and Jacksonville. This Eastern Conference first round matchup will kick off the postseason tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We have actually had a little bit of line movement here on the money line since opening. Tulsa remains at their opening spread number there at 2.5-point underdogs. The over-under for this game, 91.5. Moneyline currently has Tulsa at plus 114 and Jacksonville at minus 135. Trey or Cody, I'll leave it up to either one of you to open with any initial thoughts that you have on this game. Players of note, matchup-based things. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll jump in here first. I hate how much I love Tulsa in this spot. I love what this Tulsa offense has been doing, especially over the past month and a half of the season. TJ Edwards looks like the superhuman version of himself that we've come to know and love over the past couple of seasons. And what Caleb Ramseur's brought to the balance of the offense has been a welcome treat for Tulsa, where TJ is beating you deep with 45-yard moon balls to Jerminick Smith. But then Caleb Ramseur is keeping you honest on those short yardage situations. And that play action has just been so deadly for Tulsa. And this defense is opportunistic for the Oilers. They come up with turnovers and stops. Axel Perez is heating up. So all 3 phases of the game are looking really, really good for the Oilers heading into the postseason here. So I love Tulsa in this spot.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cody.
I was just going to say, to me, it's a toss-up. I can easily see Tulsa winning this game. On the flip side, though, I'm taking Jacksonville. And it's probably recency bias, but what I saw in the very last week, I don't know how hard Green Bay was playing, but they kept their ones out there for 3 quarters, and Jacksonville looked like a completely different team. And if they're going to be that team that we saw against Green Bay, that's going to be a tough out in the Shark Tank. Another thing that I do want to kind of like relate to both sides. If you remember last season, TJ Edwards went out with an injury partway through the season, and Tulsa was really not the same. Now they had to bring in other players and stuff like that to make the run of the playoffs, but to have him back as a full bill of health for an entire season, and on the other side for Jimmy Robinson coming back from his own injury, to have like both teams kind of have their own firepower and their own star players back in their own way, this should be able to provide fireworks for both sides. You look at the quarterback position with Sammy Edwards taking over from James Cahoon in the situation that they had, being able to get comfortable every single week that he has been the starter, to be able to get it to Markel Wade, to get Jaden Stoshak or Marcus Rogers or even Jimmy Robinson as the second leading receiver out there, it's going to come down to the star players on both sides. I know that's very cliche and easier to say than do, but at the same time, if you can get Jimmy Robinson going for the Sharks and rushing and receiving, or if you can get obviously Jermaine Smith in the receiving game, but if you can get TJ Edwards going in the passing and the rushing and being a true dual threat quarterback, you can see a lot of offensive firepower here. But I'm going to go opposite Trey. I'm going to say Jacksonville wins it. I think I've got them on the money line. I think they just make one more play. That's it. I can, if it was flipped and Tulsa had the 2 seed based on the strength of the schedule, whatever, I'd probably flip flop and say Tulsa gets the victory here. But I've got to go with the home team on this one.
Yeah, leaning upon the strength of the home team, they had to fight their tail off in order to, earn this game at ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena. So, yeah, it's for me, it's tough to pick one team over the other, because each team has their arguments for and against. In the case of TJ Edwards for the Oilers, yes, he has been fantastic this season. He should get some MVP votes, in my opinion. But now the playoffs come around. He's had his fair share of struggles historically, leading his team to that big game. Remembering those couple of years that he had with the Frisco Fighters, a team that won basically 80% of its games as a franchise and yet somehow never qualified for an IFL championship. So there's that side of it as well. In the case of the Sharks, you look at that defense, and even though they do have star power there, like Chris Rice and guys like Dylan Brown and Clay Fields, it's hasn't been all roses for them, especially during that 4-game losing streak that they had earlier this season. So when I looked at this game, I looked at the couple matchups that these teams have already had this season, and I think we've hit on it already. Like, those offenses were outstanding. Like, they went touchdown for touchdown against each other pretty much the whole way through. Like, the average possession netted nearly a full touchdown per. So, in one of the picks that I might actually love the most this week, I've got the over at 91.5. I feel like this matchup of these offenses versus defenses that do have their moments but can struggle. I'm on fire with this over 91.5 pick. I know, Cody, you had gone with Jacksonville on the money line as your initial lean. Trey, what's your selection?
I'm gonna go Tulsa plus 2.5. Give myself a little bit of cushion, a little bit there, just in case the game gets a little squirrely at the end. But yeah, ultimately, I do think Tulsa ends up winning this game.
Yeah, I've got it really close too. Again, I think we've hit it on the head here. It might come down to the final play, and especially with Mark Orozco returning for Jacksonville as well, back at full health. What we've seen him do in the couple games since he's come back from IR, that could make another major impact as well. So I'm expecting a lot of points. I feel it's very realistic that both teams can get to 50. But whatever you're looking for in this game, I think we're going to have some fireworks. So very entertaining playoff opener between these two teams, both of which, by the way, looking for their first IFL playoff win. And now that brings us to the other Eastern semifinal, which will take place to lead off Sunday's tripleheader. The Orlando Pirates back in the playoffs for the first time since 2024. Daunting task ahead of them, going to the Rush Center against the Green Bay Blizzard, where Liam Thompson and his gang have not lost a game all season. The spread originally opened at 7.5 favoring Green Bay. That number has since dropped to 6.5. So crossing back over that key number of 7. The over-under is 99.5. So if you're on the over here, you do need the century mark in order to cash. The money line currently has Orlando plus 164, Green Bay at minus 198. Cody, why don't we lead off with you this time to set the table for us with this entertaining contest?
Points. Simple as that. Orlando is very keen on winning to get into shootouts. We know that since Rob Keefe resigned all the way back in week 2, week 3, whenever that was, that Orlando's defense has a lot to be desired, and they've given up a lot of points most of the time, getting into a lot of these shootouts, a lot of very close shootouts as well, where they've been able to pull out victories. Case in point, the very last game that got them into the playoffs. But along with that, overtime wins, last play wins, things along those lines. They're going to need to get into another shootout here, in my opinion, because I think if it's going to be a lower scoring game, that's going to favor Green Bay. Both these teams are injured to all hell. I mean, you've got Green Bay with 6, 7 guys. Kyrie Robinson going on season injured reserve. Jack Studer going on season injured reserve. So Green Bay will have its work cut out for them a little bit in the running game. Orlando, in their own way, a lot of defensive secondary players hurt with Destin Mack, DJ Daniel, Corian Ballard, Jay Davis, all of that. Even Josh Gable going on short-term injured reserve to bring in Henry Nell. So I'm expecting this game to be points. You look at, again, recency bias here, but look at the amount of points that Green Bay's defense just gave up against Jacksonville. Is that, again, were they trying hard? Were they not trying hard? It remains to be seen. But I think if Orlando wants a shot to win this, they need to get into another shootout like they've done practically all season, and it's kind of worked. I don't necessarily see it, but I'm going over 99.5. I think Green Bay still wins it. I think they have a lot more firepower. I think Liam Thompson is pretty much the MVP front runner to this point. Other people can argue it, but with what they've got, can you make light with DeMylan Brown taking over for Kyrie Robinson? He was the starter for most of the season. Bringing in CJ Jefferson and what they have on the defensive side of the ball for the Blizzard, I think they just have a little bit more than what Orlando has, but you cannot look past that Orlando wide receiving core and what Paxton Taylor-Rent has done in his rookie year.
All good points. Trey, anything to add to that?
Yeah, when this line opened up, Orlando was at plus 7.5, and I was pumping my fist. I was ready to go. I loved it. Plus 6.5, I like it. I don't love it. I like it now. That 1 point is probably going to drive me insane. It's probably going to be the reason why I pull some hair out on Sunday afternoon. But yeah, this game's going to be very, very exciting. I do like the Orlando plus points here, plus 6.5, because it seems like these teams are destined for another one possession game. Each of these games decided by a total of 5 points when they played earlier this year, including an all-time cover by Orlando in their first meeting in Green Bay, scoring the touchdown with no time left to cover the 8.5. Real ones remember. Real ones remember that. And so, it would not surprise me to see another situation like that. So I like the Orlando plus 6.5.
Yep, I'm with you, Trey. Only difference is when I wrote my piece yesterday, was able to lock in the 7.5. Yep. So I'm going to stick to my guns here and use that as my bet evaluation here. But yeah, it's like if you guys known me for any stretch of time, you know how much of the praises that I've sung in terms of Green Bay covering at home. Death, taxes, and that. This matchup, though, somehow, some way, seems to be somewhat of an exception to that rule, where the Pirates historically have caused some problems for the Blizzard at the Resch Center. From that overtime victory that they had in 2023 to that unforgettable playoff upset in the 2024 Eastern Final. There is a precedent here where, if Orlando gets off to a hot start, maybe takes advantage of some uncharacteristic Green Bay mistakes early, it shouldn't surprise anyone to see Orlando possibly make a run and win this game and break some hearts in the process. The other thing that kind of fascinates me about the Pirates is that they've been set as the underdogs 9 times this season. They've actually covered in 7 of those, which is the most underdog covers by any team in the IFL. So as long as their offense keeps pumping points through and through, and at least competes with Liam Thompson and his cast of offensive star players in that regard, I see another close game here. I see another very high-scoring affair. Another one where both teams just match up each other in an optimal way for the offenses. Like, I know Kyrie Robinson's out for Green Bay, but I'm not worried. I'm trusting the system. I think DeMylan Brown is very comparable in terms of his skill set and overall upside if Corey Roberson is able to scheme plays for him in the best way. So I've got 59-55 in favor of Green Bay here, but you could easily flip that in favor of the Pirates and have a plausible argument for it. Good deal. Now we move on to the fun part, the Western Conference side of things. This Western Conference first round matchup pits the past two IFL national champions against each other where it's win or go home. Arizona, the 2024 champions, traveling to Henderson to face the current trophy holders in the Vegas Nighthawks. This is another game where the line opened differently than what it is currently. Arizona had opened at 2.5-point underdogs. They've been bet all the way down to plus 1.5. The over-under is 91.5 on the money line. Arizona plus 114 and Vegas minus 135. So basically identical to what we talked about in the Tulsa-Jacksonville game. Trey, what are some of your thoughts on this very, very anticipated rematch of these two powerhouses?
Really? Did anything happen between these two teams earlier this year? Anything worth noting?
They played each other.
No, nothing.
I don't know.
They played each other
in them all. That was dope.
They did play in them all. That can't confirm. I like Vegas in this spot primarily because they just have a plethora of offensive weapons that are finally going to be all on the field at the same time, presumably fully healthy with Jaden DeLora, Antonio Wimbush, Josh Tomas, Quentin Randolph, Deshaun Stoudemire. Just an unbelievable cast of offensive weapons here. And it feels like I feel like I would be foolish to pick against that cast of characters with this offense in Vegas. But Arizona's defense has been playing very, very good over the past 2 months of the season and has gotten dramatically better since they got absolutely steamrolled by the Fisher's Freight earlier this year, where I was like, what is happening? I've never seen Arizona get bullied around like this. But yeah, I think Vegas has the edge here. The home thing definitely plays into it here, and the experience of them being in this spot before last year to be able to advance. So I think it's going to be a close one, but I think I probably would have been comfortable picking Vegas up to 4.5. Honestly, in this one, I still would have gone with Vegas on the spread. I think Vegas is going to win this one.
Cool. Cody, do you agree, or is there a counterpoint that you're thinking?
I don't know if it's up to 4.5, but man, that's a lot of confidence in a Vegas team that for a couple of those losses and kind of even in a couple of the wins, that defense looked very suspect. They went out and got Isaiah Major on the linebacking core. I think even in their previous game, they were talking about Joe Fouché, who won Defensive Player of the Week, and how he kind of needed to step up and how that secondary needed to get after it. That's going to be the tough test, to be brutally honest with you, is how does Vegas's defense go against Arizona's offense? Because as Trey mentioned, Vegas's offense is just a plethora, a cornucopia of offensive talent. And whether or not, again, you're going to have Wimbush and you're going to have Josh Tomas. But what I noticed looking at the box score from the previous game, I don't think Antonio Wimbush had a carry. He had all the kick returns, but he didn't have a single carry. So I'm wondering if that's going to change in this game. On the flip side, you're going to see, does Max Myler get the start? Is it going to be Dalton Snead, who Arizona just signed? I doubt it, and it's going to be more of a depth piece, but I'm pretty sure that Myler's going to get the start there. When you look at the running game with Ron Brown and Kaimani Clark, it's going to be Ron Brown getting the start with Kaimani Clark kind of being the backup. But for the most part, again, how does that secondary of Vegas handle the wide receivers of Arizona? Because that's something I'm going to be looking at. And even on the Arizona side, they've had kind of a patchwork offensive line too. If Vegas can take care of that, then we're going to have a battle in the trenches. Personally, I've got Arizona in an upset. But it's just that's kind of throwing a dart at a wall. And the reason why is because, you kind of have to go against the grain in one of these games, right? And this is the one where I think it's more likely of a little upset for Arizona than I could probably see with Orlando over Green Bay or even Tulsa over Jacksonville. But could be wrong. I'm not mad if Vegas gets a victory because they're favorite. But I think Arizona somehow, some way, they can get it done.
Yeah, this time, Cody, I'm actually going to side with you. When this line was plus 2.5, I did take Arizona on that. And what this boils down to me is, I mean, there's a lot that boils down to it, but in the case of the Nighthawks, whether they like it or not, they are fighting against some rather damning history uh, regarding recent defending champions. There have been, 7 or 8 defending champions since 2018. Those defending champions have combined for a playoff record of 1-7. Bonus points if you can tell me what that one win is. But the point is, it is difficult to go back to back in this league. We haven't seen anything of that nature since Sioux Falls' 6-year run in 2011 through 2020 or 2016, when they basically were monopolizing the league at that point.
What was your trivia question again? I want to try and figure out the one.
So the only reigning champion to have won a playoff game since 2018.
It's got to be reigning champion. Okay.
Yes. So, for example, Bay Area won in 2023, but then they lost the first round game in 2024. So I inadvertently narrowed down.
Is it Massachusetts?
It was not. Their playoff game the following season was an overtime loss to Quad City.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
A little bit of food for thought while I continue talking through this game. But, right. I mean, Cody, you had mentioned, Arizona bringing back Dalton Snead. Is that to start? Or is that maybe some mind game roster management from Coach Guy, maybe bringing on a token to cause some PTSD on the Vegas side? Because, as you recall, these two teams met in this round in 2024. It was Vegas's maiden voyage in the IFL postseason, and that game ended with Arizona winning 39-38, 2-yard rushing touchdown by Dalton Snead to clinch the upset. Just pure
that signing that signing just reeks of a smokescreen. Like, it reeks of, this guy's not seeing the field, but we're going to make you think about it.
So, yeah, I mean, I've got Arizona here. Like, they've spent the past month burning me on basically any of my selections. So, their move. Simple as that. So, another really, really great game. Very conceivable that the winner of this winds up representing the West in the championship. Could very well be. I've got 48-46 as my final score prediction, by the way. All right, fourth game, final game of the first round. The Tucson Sugar Skulls with a chance to potentially host their own championship game. But first, they're going to have to stage an upset on a heavily favored San Diego Strikeforce team. Spread currently sits at 9.5, favoring the hosts. The over-under at 87.5. On the money line, Tucson plus 260, San Diego minus 325. Cody, your prevailing thoughts on this Western Conference 4-1 tilt?
So this will be the fourth matchup that these two teams have. It'll be the third straight matchup that they are in San Diego. And the last two times they met in San Diego, the under is hit. So give me the under 87.5, unless it's changed on the screen in front of me, because I have my own bets in front of me. So it's still under 87.5. Okay, cool. But when their first matchup all the way back in week 5, San Diego won 48-42. So that was 90 points, which is just a little bit over this 87.5. Other than that, these two teams have played each other, I mean, with San Diego prevailing in all three, but somewhat close, somewhat not close. And I'm just taking the under. I still think San Diego gets the victory here. But as we saw, both teams trotted out their B squads. We should be to full health for both of these sides with, obviously the injuries there, but full health in terms of the active players. I think San Diego is going to get this victory, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than some people realize. And what Jerome Johnson can do, what he's done from New Mexico to Tucson and being able to kind of turn Tucson's season around, it goes without saying that Tucson deserves to be here. Can they make some noise? There has been a 1-seed curse throughout the season where no 1-seed, or not season, but like seasons, where the 1-seed has failed to make the championship game in years and years and years. You got to go back a long time. So Would it shock me if there's an upset? Not necessarily, but I think San Diego is the better team. But they'll get the victory under 87.5.
Cool pick. Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, I was leaning towards the under 87.5 for similar reasons, but I'm gonna go with San Diego minus 9.5 here. It just feels like the San Diego team is built for a run. The way they've been able to utilize the running game, not just with Ed Vander, hashtag feed Vander, and Tyrell Green and being like that nice change of pace running back for them. Nate Davis has had a typical Nate Davis season where he can light it up, but sometimes gets you into a little bit of trouble with his gunslinger ways. But to me, where the wild card for this San Diego team is on the defensive side of the ball with this veteran secondary and then this D line. This D line is not getting talked about enough for the amount of pressure that they bring to opposing teams and pressure bursts pipes. And it feels like we might see Jerome Johnson running for his life with Wallace Cowens and Adam Anderson. They're lining up Adam Anderson at blitzing linebacker. So they're essentially having 4 defensive ends rushing the quarterback at any given time, and really good defensive ends at that. So the floor and the ceiling is too wide of a range for Jerome Johnson for me to comfortably be able to invest any stock in Tucson in this game. So it's going to take an A+ Jerome Johnson game to beat the San Diego team. So I think San Diego is going to win this one comfortably.
Cool. Looking back on like prior 3-game series in the IFL that have had a 4th postseason matchup or maybe a 5th postseason matchup, this one's very fascinating in that even though we've had 3 games of a sample prior, there's not really much that you can glean from those because San Diego's first 2 wins early in the season were against a pre-Jerome Johnson Tucson side, whereas their 3rd meeting last week was basically the junior varsity prelude. So it's tough to find any strands of consistency within that. Although one that I feel like might not get talked about enough here is the Tucson defense, which limited San Diego to a maximum of 48 points across that 3-game sample. And they've held their own against some of the league's elite offenses. For example, they had a game earlier this year back at home. They limited Arizona to 28. So that defense, which has guys like I think Alan Anderson, Tyqua's Legs, Breon Murray, Endicott kid Zach Twardowski, they've been deceptively good on that side of the ball. And if they pair that with what I believe is the strength and the identity of their offense, which is a running game, they can pretty much try to chip away, 3 or 4 yards of carry with Brandon Mackey, complement that with some Jerome Johnson design runs to essentially play keep away and dictate the pace of the game that could mirror one of those, hard set playoff type of matches. So I'm in agreement with Cody's pick here. I've got the under at 87.5, and I'm glad I'm not a crazy person and maybe be the only one thinking this. But yeah, like we said, both defenses have their upside. I feel like both are going to try to dictate the pace in their own way. But yeah, just looking from the Tucson side, they were one of the best under cashing teams in the league. San Diego, in contrast, was more of an over team. But these 4-versus-1 games can be weird, especially in the Western Conference. So my final score prediction is 44-38 for San Diego. I do have them winning, but I definitely agree with Cody that Tucson, if San Diego isn't careful, could make a potential run, which could have some historic ramifications, actually. For one, could be Tucson's first playoff win in franchise history. But it could also double as the largest upset by win-loss difference from one team to another in IFL postseason history. Bonus points if you can tell me which team currently has that record.
You're gonna spill the answers at the end of this.
Little hint.
Yeah, it would have to be what, Pirates Blizzard from 2024
and Pirates Frisco from 6 days earlier. Because the Pirates ended 8-8 that season. They took down 2 13-3 teams en route to the championship. We don't talk about what happened in that championship because that game never happened. But we remember the good times. That was one of my favorite postseason runs by any of my favorite teams ever. All right. So, boys, I say we create a little triumvirate here. I've got my personal 3-leg parlay off to the side there as a little bit of a guide. But we can do a little bit of workshopping here and cook something up. So I'll actually have Trey start. I know he's been kicking for a little bit of redemption after last week. So give us your selection to lead things off here.
You trusted me and I failed you.
And we're doubling down.
Yeah. Yeah. to me, like I said, I hate how much I love Tulsa. Like it scares me. It genuinely frightens me how much I love Tulsa. So I'm gonna go with Tulsa plus 2.5.
All right.
So if I'm the one that ruins it again, so be it. But yeah, I just love what Tulsa's been doing, and it's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a brawl. But yeah, give me the Oilers plus 2.5.
All right, Code Man, you're up.
I'm sticking with what you and I got. I'm going under 87.5 between Tucson and San Diego. I think that game it's not gonna necessarily hinge on the defenses. It's gonna hinge on Tucson's defense and how do they stop all of the offensive firepower that San Diego has, whether it's Vander, Green, Hooks, Sample, Daniels, whoever. Even if it's a Nate Davis running alert, I mean, you have to account for everybody. And that's going to be the key for that one, because if you start getting those deep shots to Shane Hooks or Dallas Daniels over the top, then that over could really start to look pretty scary. But I hope that defense is up to the task, and maybe both teams are trying a little too hard early on before they start getting into their grooves in the first quarters. 7-0, 7-3, something like that, and you really start to feel a little bit better about it. But that's what I got.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit cheeky when I wrote this last week, but I think I put something in my parlay analysis that, like, hey, if we have a 47-40 game, this is still safe. And again, it kind of ties back to that distinction between the 86.5 and the 87.5 this year, given how things have averaged out this season in terms of league-wide point scoring. So I'm going to actually vary this up a little bit for the sake of science. I'm going to pivot towards Arizona, Vegas. And screw it. Let's juice this.
Was he going for the upset?
There you go.
Let's do it. Why not? I mean, if we go 2 of 3 and mine is the bad apple that sours the bunch, then you know what, maybe we deserve it. But I don't know. I mean, another thing too that I forgot to talk about with the main game pick, that we had the 2 prior meetings between these 2 teams. There was one in this building in Anderson at Lee's Family Forum, and then the IFL Cup Championship over at American Dream. Vegas won both those games.
Mm-hmm.
The prevailing wisdom, as any college basketball enthusiast will tell you, is that it is really difficult to beat the same team 3 times in one season. And that argument really rings true when you're pitting together 2 championship contenders. So you don't think Kevin Guy is going to be out there ready for this game? I mean, don't get me wrong, Mike Davis will be too, but in a game where perhaps history favors the Rattlers, let's take the 114. Why the heck not? The last thing that I'll do quickly here.
Kevin Guy's getting his pushing hands ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I was telling my dad last night as well, we were kind of talking about some of these. If the halftime show is not a 15-round boxing match between the 2 head coaches, I'm not interested.
That'll be the post game.
Oh, heck yeah. All right. So, boys, if successful, that's what we've got. A plus 679 banger.
Let's
if all
go.
of these go through. Absolutely awesome. So there you have it. That's what we've cooked up. So Trey is starting off the parlay the same as I am, with the Oilers at that plus 2.5. You never know if you're going to need those points. I've got my totally not cursed Arizona Rattlers money line pick at the middle. And Cody is sticking with his guns, going with the under at 87.5 and Tucson and San Diego. That combines for plus 679. If you're interested, $10 bet. If successful, you're walking away with around $78 if it goes through. So promising tickets here. Let's hope at least one of them sees the cashier. With that, we will bring tonight to a close. But before we say our goodbyes for the evening, I want to shout out a formal thank you here to Trey and Cody for hopping along, the creators of the In the Alley and Off the Wall online presences. If you have not yet followed either of these outstanding guys, I would highly recommend doing so on the socials of your choice, be it YouTube, X, Insta, whatever they've got out there. These two guys, in my opinion, are the class of content creation, not just within the IFL, but really the entire arena and indoor landscape. So thank you guys again so much for your time. I always value your input and your friendship. Let's go out there and have a week.
Let's go.
What if we just won all of our bets? How about that?
I love it. Contradictory ones, though.
One of us will walk away.
Hey, that just means one of us will be happy and we can cheer on the other ones.
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top. See? There you go.
I understand that reference.
Yeah, Alec, this has been awesome. Really, really appreciate you putting all this together throughout the whole season.
Appreciate it, guys. All righty. With that, we will put the wraps on our first playoff week of the 2026 series. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your interest in this league. If you're going to go out and place some bets this week, I wish you the very best. And as always, I will see you at the cashier. Have an awesome weekend, everyone.